Yeah, it's a Weege Show, beautiful Sunday afternoon. I believe spring has sprung, and that means it's time to go riding. My little guy got one of these KTM SX E5s. That's the electric bikes. And I don't know if I'd really want to be an electric bike guy myself as a full-size bike guy. You know, like a clutch and gears and engine sounds are cool. But for a little guy, it's a perfect little way to learn. The throttle is really linear, and you get to work on like fundamentals when you're riding that thing. So that's why I decided to get that for him. But there are some things that you cannot teach. And that's what we're going to focus on in this edition of the Weege Show. This is a review brought to you by Racetech Gold Valves. This crappy pit bike that I practically stole from my buddy Hooper could really use some gold valves on that thing. The suspension is worse than on that KTM. If you get gold valves, you'll have suspension that's plusher, better bottoming resistance, more traction, made and engineered in the USA. And let's talk about Racetech's engine services. They have digital CNC porting, so they can perfectly replicate your plan. So if you're an engine builder, go to them. They'll sign an NDA. They won't share it with your competition, and you'll have yourself world-class engine building courtesy of Racetech. It's our little woods loop back here. So what is it? What is it that you can't teach? Look, man, I've been covering this sport for a long time. This is my 20th season doing this. And then before that, I was a fan. I've told the story a million times. Basically 6 years old. He's 6. When I was 6 through now, I've read every issue of Cycle News and all the magazines back then and watched whatever races were on TV in those days. And then once every race was on TV, I've got boxes and boxes of VHS tapes. I have been a fan of this through and through. I cannot find a parallel to what Cooper Webb does. I cannot find a parallel to it. And what was really telling, when we hung out with Phil Nicoletti in our preview show on Friday, what did Phil say? When you ride with Cooper, there isn't anything that makes you think, this guy, he's unbelievable. Oh, no, trust me, he's faster than you think or faster than it looks. He somehow just engineers it. As my buddy Kevin Kelly said at Daytona, it's like invisible speed. Now, we knew the narrative coming into Arlington 3. Webb had the momentum. Everything was going Webb's way. It was the Webb wagon, whatever you want to call it. But then all of a sudden in the heat race, everything changed. Ken Roczen, who desperately needed to punch back, did in the heat. The track was awesome. It had these huge rhythms. My buddy Jason Thomas, you can read it online, was super pumped on this track. He predicted it Saturday morning that this would be the best racetrack of the season, and it was. We had a rhythm lane where guys were going quint. They were fiving, they were doing 2 tables with a single in between, and that wasn't even necessarily the fastest way through. Tomac was actually going on-off of those tables and arguably going faster when he was in a big battle with Barcia. So we had a gnarly track, it also had gnarly whoops, and that doesn't necessarily favor Webb. And in the heat race, there was Roczen doing the big rhythms, and then he was going so much faster, it was just a matter of when is Roczen going to find an opening, and then he did. And then he passed him, and the limited capacity crowd, maybe it's bigger in Texas. No, I know Texas is open for business, but they couldn't change the rules of Supercross. It's still limited capacity, but it sounded loud. And I swear, when Chase Sexton did the same thing and ended up knocking Webb down, I think the crowd cheered loud then too. Now, this is a very informal poll, but I don't think Cooper necessarily is a fan favorite. I think people love the Ken Roczen story. They also love the fact that Roczen has been an established superstar, superhero type guy for a long time. Same thing with Eli Tomac. Tomac is very popular. There are a lot of Tomac fans, and if we report on Tomac or say something that Tomac has done, people click on it. And it's not because he's announcing his own race. It's not because... Is he really announcing his own race? It's not because Tomac is some dynamic personality, right? It's just because we know he's good. We know that the guys that are supposed to win are the most important ones. I still feel like the world has a tough time buying into Cooper Webb is one of those guys. He is one of those guys. He is. This is the 3rd season in a row where he's gone toe-to-toe with Tomac and Roczen, and honestly now he's really starting to edge ahead. I know he won the 2019 title. There are previous seasons where you could maybe say, yeah, but Tomac was still the best guy. They've had their shots, and they had it going in this race in Arlington. That heat race was scintillating. The crowd was pumped. They had Cooper Webb on the ropes. Like I said, I don't know if Webb's the most popular guy, A, and B, we all want to see this championship be close, right? We want the narrative to change. You don't want Webb to just keep on winning. And then in the main event, Roczen even got the whole shot. And Roczen is a world-class sprinter. Roczen does his best work at the beginning of the race. That's why when you watch the race on television, they showed you that Roczen actually doesn't have a lot of hole shots this year, which is odd because I thought at the beginning of the year he had awesome starts. See, Roczen doesn't need to get hole shots. Roczen is so good at the beginning of the race, he just has to start 3rd. and he will instantly be in the lead. He has the best first lap speed, I think, in this game. I haven't seen someone have first lap speed like that since James Stewart. That's just pure talent right there. You can't teach that part. But I got alarmed when Roczen, with that sprint speed, only stretched the gap to about 1.2 seconds on Webb. That is not big enough, because you know Webb just gets better as the race goes on. And lo and behold, there's Webb jumping some of those rhythms. He did the quint in the rhythm lane in the main that he didn't do in the heat race. And yes, those whoops, they're gnarly. And he starts figuring out a hybrid hammer over the top and then jump the last few combo. And the whoops were getting broken down. So there's, according to Tomac, after the race, there was one groove down the middle. So if you just get in that, you can kind of neutralize. Everyone can go the same speed, so to speak. When they're fresh and they're huge, you can just hammer across the tops better than other people. But when they get that groove in it, it's like, this is the speed you're going to go. And then you just saw it materializing. You saw, wait a minute, Roczen isn't pulling away anymore. And then Roczen had problems in the sand section every lap. Then Webb's right on him. Webb's got Tomac behind him, and maybe in previous years you'd be like, hey, Tomac's right there. Tomac gets these dudes, he always does. It's not quite the same this year. And then there it was. Webb going after Roczen, and he managed to get Roczen out of that main groove in the whoops. And then there was Webb. The whoops are normally his weakness, right? And these were gnarly whoops, and it was a huge problem for him in the heat, right? And there he is, passing Roczen in those whoops. I don't know what this is. I've never seen this. This is a crazy intangible level of racer. And everybody, when I go on social media, everybody sums it up the same way I do. It's like, well, he's maybe not the best rider, but he's the best racer. Yes, we've all seen that. We've all seen people who maybe race better than they qualify or really rise to the occasion. But to this level, I mean, Sexton and Roczen absolutely had him covered in that heat. And to think that he was able to recover in that way, look, this is just what Cooper Webb has been doing for 3 years. We just have to realize this is what it is. You have to buy in that he's just as good as these guys. Maybe you don't see it on film or see it in practice or see it in qualifying. Maybe it's not, oh my gosh, this clip of him jumping this thing or going through this route so fast. Maybe it's not that stuff. It's just some sort of intangible thing. And obviously racing is mental, and obviously there's more to it than just who's willing to risk it for the biscuit the most. But I didn't think it could make that much of a difference, but here we are. Just crazy, man. And there's going to be, people are going to be trying to uncover this 10 years from now. Like, how do you teach what Cooper Webb is able to do? Because you look at the way Roczen rides, it's so good. It's so good, it's so right. You can try to teach some of those techniques. You can't teach the talent, but you can teach some of the techniques. Roczen is so good at keeping his feet up. He has such good balance in the corners, for example. He really controls the bike through the pegs. He's so smooth. All those things. Webb, I don't even know, man. I don't even know. He just manufactures speed in the moment. I do feel like Ricky Carmichael could do that to a degree. I remember talking to David Bailey once, and we watched back the 2005 Atlanta Supercross where Ricky fell down. He actually had to pass Chad Reed twice, and he's like, that's making speed in the moment, to go faster when you really need to than you even thought you could. But let's be honest, Ricky Carmichael was never slow. I don't think there was ever heat races where he was getting handled like that. It's just a microcosm of the way Webb goes about it, and I wanted to talk about it for 8 minutes and 26 seconds because I just thought it's so unique. I can't really find any parallels. The closest I could come, someone hit me up on Twitter and said it's time to realize that Cooper Webb is the new Ryan Villopoto, and that's maybe the closest I could come, because Villopoto, I feel the real specialty was pressure rides, rising to the occasion, and in the same way, there was a little bit of lag time when Villopoto started winning. Remember, Reed and Stewart were still there, so I think it was still like, is he really as good as Stewart and Reed? Is he really as good? And I think, same thing with Webb, is he really as good as Roczen and Tomac? A little bit of lag time. And I don't know, again, if anyone's putting out videos saying, you should have saw Villopoto jump this thing, or you should have saw Villopoto hit these whoops. It's like nothing you ever seen. It was, again, more than invisible speed. In Villopoto's case, a lot of it was corners. But it's not quite Villopoto parallel, because I do remember in 2011 and 2012, when he was starting his takeover, he was still duking it out with Stewart for fastest lap time in practice, which is no joke, right? We're not seeing that kind of thing from Webb. We're seeing something that we've never seen before. And I've talked about it now for 9 minutes and 36 seconds, and you already know what I'm saying. So let's just move on. There's a 2-week break. That is potentially the chance for people to fight back. And also we're going to this Atlanta track, which is at Atlanta Motor Speedway. It is huge, and Tomac seems really excited about that one. Title hopes for Tomac, they're pretty much extinguished, and he has even admitted that. But a big, fast, huge track. I think the faster the Supercross track, the better it is for Tomac, so maybe there's something there. But we all know how championships are won. We all know how championship seasons tend to look, and I think we've already seen it. And it's just crazy, because we're seeing it now, but I don't feel like I've ever seen anything like this before.